What's going on, everybody? Top 10 Pokemon back, bringing you another top Pokemon card auctions of the week recap. Folks, another amazing week for Pokemon card auctions. As always, we saw several modern Pokemon cards making some huge moves, and others not so much. We also saw a ton of CGC slabs come by, so if you are a CGC collector, you're going to really love today's episode. Folks, I really appreciate you watching this series each and every week. Thank you so much. A quick shout out from today's video sponsor, lowpopping.market. What is lowpopping.market? It's an Instagram page of high-end card dealers that buy all graded cards and sealed product. If you're looking for investment-worthy cards, look no further than lowpopping.market. Folks, when I say they have a ton of grails available, I am not joking. Just look at these amazing cards they have listed each and every week for sale. Now, what's awesome about this particular page is that they offer trades on all of their items. So in the event that you see a grail that you must have, but maybe you don't have the cash on hand to pay for it, you can easily trade for it. Not to mention they offer other multiple payment methods and international shipping. And trust me, Low Popping is very reputable. So when you're done watching this amazing auction recap, go to Instagram and follow lowpopping.market if you haven't already. I'll put the link to that in the description below as well. As I've said before, folks, even if you're not looking to buy right now, go follow them on Instagram, check out what they have available, and you will be astonished at the selection they have. All right, folks, I'm excited. I have a heck of an auction recap for you. We got a lot to talk about. Let's get started off with some celebrations. And what I mean by that is the Pikachu metal Pikachu card from Celebration set came by yet again this week in PSA 10. Now, last week, if you recall, we saw an auction end at $2,000 for this particular card, and nobody bid on it, right? Ain't nobody got time for that. The same card came by yet again this week, $500 less, and we did have someone buy it for $1,525. Let's take a look at the description of this particular card because it is kind of humorous. Pop 9 at the time of listing, in my opinion, the holy grail of Pokemon.
Come on now, dog. Come on, man.
Yeah, folks, I don't know. I can think of 100 other cards off the top of my head that would be more holier of a grail than this card. What do you think? So it seems to me, folks, people are not jumping at the bit to get their hands on this card. There's a lot of speculation here, I think, of people just not having much faith in the long-term investability of a PSA 10 Pikachu. If you recall, years ago, this card had sold for over $10,000. When PSA started grading this card again, it sold for about $2,500, but it didn't end up actually selling for that, as this exact same card was then relisted as a buy it now for $2,500. So people just don't really seem to be wanting to spend a lot of money on this card. Can you blame them? There's going to be a lot more of these PSA 10s coming down the pike. No doubt about it. Up next, we saw another Metal Charizard from the Ultra Premium Collection box in PSA 10. This week, it sold for $2,426. From Scarlet and Violet, we don't see a whole lot of graded Scarlet and Violet cards. This week, a Full Art Gyarados EX came by in PSA 10. It sold for $152.50. Here we have a few interesting Black Label sales. Here's a Black Label Mew VMAX from Fusion Strike that sold for $435. Here is a Black Label Japanese 25th Anniversary Charizard card that sold for $1,875. Here we have a Black Label Japanese Limited Master Battle Set Pikachu card, sold this week for $3,650. Here we have a Japanese Giratina V Alt Art from the Lost Abyss set that sold for $3,700. And then we saw a Black Label Lugia V from Silver Tempest that sold for $5,500. Up next, folks, you're probably going to wonder why I included this. It is a lot of, I believe, 14 graded cards from the McDonald's collection from back in 2021. These are all PSA 10s that sold for $290. And what's crazy is 2 years ago, this would have been worth a small fortune, folks. People were paying an obscene amount of money for these cards graded PSA 10. I mean, you're talking thousands of dollars for this particular lot. Has since dwindled to about $290. So I found it Very interesting. Up next, we saw the Charizard Holo from Evolution set come by again. Sold for $1,500, which seems to be the sweet spot for this card now. Before, it was ending at like $1,800 for the longest time, and then it dipped down a bit, but it seems to be selling pretty consistently now for about $1,500. Up next, we saw the Full Art Lily from Ultra Prism, folks. It cracked the $2,000 mark as a PSA 10. This particular copy right here sold for $2,056 US. I told you this card was going to get over $2,000. I didn't think it was going to be this early, but wow. Isn't that something? Speaking of full art trainers, we have the Japanese Sightseer in PSA 10 that sold for $2,350 this week. From Lost Thunder, we saw a Rainbow Rare Lugia that sold for $715. And then from Celestial Storm, we saw a full art Lycia that sold for $810. Here we saw the alt art Gengar Mimikyu GX from Team Up Set, hitting the staggering price of $1,475 this week. And then a couple of Charizard GXs came by. Here's the Rainbow Rare Charizard GX from Burning Shadows, sold for an even $3,000, which has been where this card's been selling at for the past several months. And then we saw a CGC10 Perfect Charizard GX from Hidden Fates that sold for $1,625. You think that's a good price for this card? I mean, to put into perspective, a PSA 10 copy sells for about $690, and the last black label that sold was for $5,150. So, yeah, $1,625 is a far cry from the black label price, and many people consider a CGC 10 Perfect to be the equivalent of a black label in terms of quality, in terms of grading quality. I don't know. What do y'all think? Speaking of perfect Zards, here is a CGC 10 Perfect Radiant Charizard from Pokemon Go that sold for $197.50. And lastly, for our modern auctions, here is a Team Up booster box that sold sealed for $1,530. All right, getting into some vintage, we saw this Topps Chrome Techno Ivysaur in PSA 10 that sold for $1,191. And these Techno cards from the Topps Chrome series are very, very low pop. Here is a Venusaur Holo from base set that was signed by Arita. It's even got a nice little design of the toad right there. The card graded a 10 and the autograph graded a 9 for whatever reason, and it sold for $1,390. And then we saw another PSA 10 first edition base set Venusaur come by, sold for $11,501. From Jungle Set, we saw an unlimited Victory Bell Holo that sold for $474, while the first edition Holo sold for $1,175 US. Here we saw from Jungle as well a CGC 10 first edition Mr. Mime that sold for $723. Here is a PSA 10 Aerodactyl pre-release card from Fossil. This is a first edition pre-release. In PSA 10, we saw two sales, one for $715, the other one for $1,030. And then we also saw from Fossil a holographic Kabutops that sold for $710. Here is a Zapdos Holo from the Thunderstorm theme deck. This is the Cosmos Holofoil version. That sold as a PSA 10 for $355, where the CGC 10 didn't do quite as well, selling for $236. Up next is a CGC 10 first edition Dark Gyarados Holo that sold for $452. And then we saw another first edition Dark Charizard that sold for $3,739. Several holos from Gym Challenge came by. Here is an unlimited Koga's Beedrill, a card you can get from the Koga theme deck, I believe, that graded a PSA 10 and sold for $596. Here's a Blaine's Arcanine first edition holo in PSA 10, sold for $1,525, while the CGC 10 first edition Blaine's Arcanine sold for $1,046. We saw a Blaine's Charizard first edition holo sell for $3,850, and then this copy with a newer style label sold for a little bit more at $4,050. So it seems to me, folks, when you're comparing these identical cards, when they're graded with PSA, with the older hologram label versus the Lighthouse label, it seems like the newer labels always go for just a little bit more. Up next, we saw the holographic Misty's Golduck, a very low pop holo from Gym Challenge, sold this week for $1,676. Here is an Erica's Dragonair holo that sold for $720. And then we saw a CGC 10 first edition Misty Trainer card that sold for $460. Up next, folks, a couple of the Black Star promo Mews. I've been covering these for several weeks now. I just can't seem to gauge a price. It's kind of all over the place. Here, a CGC 10 copy sold for $690. And this CGC 10 has ranged anywhere from $1,000 to a little over $100 in the past couple weeks. This week it was somewhere in the middle. Definitely some wacky bidding going on with this card, at least for CGC 10s. And then a PSA 10 has sold this week for $760. We saw the Neo Genesis starters come by in PSA 10. Here's a Meganium number 11 in first edition that sold for $530, which is pretty low for that card. Here is a Feraligatr number 4 that sold for $953, and then the Typhlosion 18 sold for an even $1,000. On to the old school EX era, we saw a Charizard EX from Fire Red Leaf Green, got the PSA 7, but was autographed, and that autograph got a PSA 10, and this sold for $4,050. We saw a Rayquaza Holo from Emerald sell for $552. Here is a Manectric EX from Deoxys, sold for an even $400, while the Deoxys EX from Emerald sold for $1,735. From EX Unseen Forces, we saw this Politoed EX in PSA 10 that sold for $513. We saw a CGC 10 Ampharos EX from Dragon Set that sold for $510. And then we saw a couple of Hitmonchan EXs. This one's from Ruby and Sapphire that sold for $998. And this Rockets Hitmonchan EX sold for $980. And then here we also saw a Rockets Mewtwo that sold for $2,550. Here we have a Japanese promo. It's the Rockets Raikou EX in PSA 10 that sold for an even $3,000 this week. We have a Black Star promo Groudon EX that sold for $622. And then from EX Power Keepers, we've seen this card come by quite a bit in the past several weeks. It's the Charizard Holo that sold for $1,625. Now on to this week's PWCC weekly auction recap. We saw a couple of awesome cards from Call of Legends. Here's an Entei Holo that sold as a PSA 10 for $1,320, while the Raikou sold for $1,590. And the Groudon sold for $2,220. From Ruby and Sapphire, we saw a Mewtwo EX that sold for $1,710. And then here we saw a Black Label Japanese Kadabra from base set that sold for $1,830. Here we have a signed Snorlax card from Rising Rivals that sold for $1,890. Here is a Gold Star Vaporeon from EX Power Keepers, sold this week for $2,160. And then folks, this wasn't from PWCC, this was a sale on eBay. It is a PSA 1 Espeon Gold Star from the Pop Series 5 that sold for $1,035. And if you take a look at the back of this card, it is most certainly a PSA 1 condition card, but just like the first edition base set Charizard, no matter what kind of condition you have this card in, it's always going to go for a premium price. We saw another Japanese Sightseer come by in PSA 10. This one here sold for $2,520. Woo! And check this out, folks. This is very interesting, to me at least. We saw a BGS 9.5 first edition Lugia from Neo Genesis that sold for $3,960. Okay, you ready for this? I'm going to throw some numbers at you, so I hope you're ready. Back in the day, in mid-2021, a BGS 10 pristine version of this card came by an auction and sold for $144,300. Okay, so the difference 0.5 of a grade can make. Ready? This BGS 10 is $140,000 more than the BGS 9.5, according to the last sales. It is 36 times more expensive than the BGS 9.5. And it is a 3,544% increase from the BGS 9.5. That's the difference 0.5 of a grade can make on a card. Up next, we have this amazing Gyarados Holo from Skyridge, got the CGC 10 Perfect grade, sold for $4,200 this week. We have this Alakazam Masaki promo from the Japanese vending series in PSA 10 that sold for $4,680. Here we have a BGS10 Black Label Japanese World Collection Pikachu card, sold for $5,520. This is a Pop 2 card. And then the last auction we're going to cover on PWCC is this Celebi EX from Unseen Forces. That in PSA 10 has sold this week for $8,400. That concludes our auction recap. I hope you enjoyed. I know I love making these videos every week. That's why I still do it. Thank you so much again for watching, folks. Give the video a like, and don't forget to be a subscriber if you're not already. I'll catch you all in my next one.